one of the most serious things that we do find with elderly or those that have obesity even is the breakdown of skin, and it happens in these hidden skin folds. It's damp, it's moist, it sets up the sets up the field for bacteria or fungal type infections. Dehydration. Dehydration leads the skin to be very thin and easily fragile. We have frequently with the elderly, we'll see patients that have their arms and they have multiple skin tears where they might have accidentally bumped up against the side rail and that was enough to damage the tissue. That can be also tied to their nutritional status, because why elderly? Maybe they don't have as good a nutrition status. They're not food is not as appetizing. You have situations where individuals have some sort of disease state, for instance, liver dysfunctions or insufficiencies. You might set up where you have changes in the skin color. Jaundice, for instance. You guys may have seen individuals with that yellowish type of skin, right? The lifestyle choices one makes. That suntan lady, I don't think any of us will forget her, right? And then, you know, it's interesting, and it's just been a fad that's just really taken off here is these tattoos. It's almost accepted. I would dare say, how many people in here have tattoos? See, now when I was in nursing school, there was nobody with, you know, you wouldn't dare have a nurse with a tattoo, right? But now that's becoming a norm. It really is. Because we find that we have to have this kind of expression with using our bodies. Our body has become an art, a mechanism of art, I suppose. My son took the notion he wanted to have St. Christopher and the gates of hell tattooed on his back. And he literally did it.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, the whole back. It has a whole story. The Sistine, you know, and I said, why did you do that? And, you know, and now, you know, he's gotten older and he says, I'm going to try. I said, it'll cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get rid of that. You're just going to have to live with that thing. One would hope one day it may fade out, but probably won't.
Fade out.
Probably. Huh?
Let's get him.
Yes, if he would get in the sun, but it would just frighten people off. You got to imagine and it is frightening. But I mean, you know, and two, that's a good point for me to share right now. You guys that have tattoos, because I did have some students, some nursing students that actually had their whole arms tattooed. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That all different colors, you know. Whatever the story was, I don't know. But they had their whole arms tattooed. And so and I have guys too, likewise. And so what you must purchase if you are one of those that have that desire to have art, your body has art, right? You'll get those sleeves. They sell those sleeves in nursing stores now. Those white sleeves, if you are one of those. It's a good, you know, I'm okay. I don't care. I mean, after seeing what my son does, you know, doesn't, you know, I've seen it all, in other words. I want to tell you guys that when you do your showers tomorrow, my guys, and then you guys to come, right? That's one of the best times to do an assessment of your patient. You can capture more things that are occurring with your patient, more troublesome areas that one hasn't seen, one hasn't reported in terms of nursing personnel. And you catch it when you're doing the bath. You really do. Some skin tears under the breast, because they're not going to tell you they have something, a breakout. An elderly lady's not going to tell a male nurse But if you're doing the bath and you raise up their breast and you see where the skin has these skin folds and it's moist areas where they've developed breakdown, you'll be able to do something to help them. You know, report it to the physician, nystatin powder. It's usually what they get, a little spray bottle. Good stuff. When you're doing your assessment of your patient, again, be non-judgmental, accepting. I'm okay with the tattoos, right? It's okay. Be open to that, because more and more you're going to see in these nursing homes, you're going to see these residents that have these unusual tattoos in unusual areas. If you know where I'm going with that. I have had, trust me, on the male gender. Pretty, oh yes, oh yes, oh yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you must be non-judgmental with this stuff. You must be accepting. You know, you just be accepting. Also, when you're talking to your residents or your patients, you want to find out any kind of history of diseases or allergies to foods or plants or these kinds of things. You're always, what are you always doing? You're always assessing. Every time you come in contact with your patients. Assessment is the answer on the NCLEX board exam. If there is a selection answer, and one of them is assess, you go to that, because that's doing, that's the nurse doing. Privacy. Guys, please make sure that you don't leave the doors or the curtains open if you do a bed bath, or if you you know, if you're taking them into the shower room, you make sure that they're covered in their wheelchair, you know, that the sides aren't exposed. Right? It's a common sense thing. But again, when you're doing your bath, you're going to be able to engender everything about your patient. And I highly recommend my students, the ones y'all assist with your bath, that logically would be the one you should do your care plan on. That's logically the one you'll write your nurse's note on. See what it makes sense, because you're already in there doing assessment. What's say, do you mind if I listen to your lungs? After we get your bath, could I go ahead and get a set of vital signs? Because if you're in there and you're helping with the shower and you have your stethoscope, you can assess what the lungs, because skin, the stethoscope, isn't it? You see, so you're going to have that stethoscope around you. Make it make sense for you. Make it work for you. See, I'm giving you a hint. We're not even at clinical site yet. But that's what I recommend. And whoever your partner is going to be there, aren't they? If y'all working in teams or threesome, right? See how that's going to work? So you'd be able to check their pulses, check the edema. See how that's going to work? Makes sense, doesn't it? So all of you is going to be doing baths and showers tomorrow. Those showers, they want to get them up, see? You're going to check their mobility, because afterwards, what? You're going to dry them, and then you're going to help them get into their clothing. See how the mobility, how can they fit into their clothing? How are they able to? Are they agile enough to? You know, it takes, you know, it's a challenge to put your clothes on, right? It's hard for me to get up and get myself going. We'll see how it goes tomorrow for you guys, right? That'll be fun. It's all fun. Anytime, it's an honor to help a patient or a senior to make them feel good about themselves, because they have so many days where they don't feel good. And time on earth is very short, guys. Time on earth is very short. It really is. You're going to want to assess, and what a better time is during the bath, is their color, their skin color. I gave you some examples. The first one, a gentleman there, he represents pale, sort of a pale skin. You'll see someone that's got really pale skin, and he's quite ill, because you can see where he's actually has that blood that sort of pools in below his eyes. You see that? That's a cardinal sign. That's cardinal. You have those, and some of you may have family members that have some skin discoloration colorization, rosacea, right? Do you have family members that has that condition? That third one over depicts jaundice. It's not my best picture, but it's sort you can sort of see a yellowish tint, can you? And the last one is a very interesting picture. Do you see within that his facial area? You can almost see that it has this hint of blue. Can y'all sort of see it? Oh. If you look closely, you see it's sort of. It's not my best. He actually, they
his hair look good.
Not
his face.
His tongue. He had a better picture, and I have to go back through my other records that I've made from other schoolwear copies, but very cyanotic. But he has this sort of a bluish color. Do you see that? Individuals that have lung issues, disorders, cardiac issues, you'll find that their nail beds, they'll have a slower capillary refill. You see how y'all going to do that when you do your shower? I mean, what does it take while you're just doing that while you're, checking their capillary refill while you're showering? Doesn't that make sense? That's why every week, every one of us are going to be helping with those showers. Say, yes, I want to. Let us shower the residents. Just give us the lowdown on y'all's practice, right? And see how that's going to help y'all become stronger RNs in your assessment abilities. Y'all see that, don't you?
Is there going to be like a CNA or somebody to assist us for the first time to let us know how
They're
to
gonna.
do it?
They will work with you,
Okay.
but you are going to just have to do it. You have two of yous working together. I know you can do it. Don't be afraid. You must not be afraid. You must. It's going to help. You're going to help them, and they're going to help you. See, we thank our residents because they're helping you become that RN. See. So then at the end, we're going to plant beautiful flowers in the garden. That's our job. Flowers. So everybody can look. Common skin problems you see, and how many of us have had itchy skin, right? Pruritus. That depicts a decubitus ulcer. That's a little bit further down, pressure ulcer. That's a hip. That's a bony prominence. That's.
How long does it take for that to form?
Not long. I had a patient that came into the ICU, and I can't remember, see, because I start forgetting what group I've told what. But I had this lady, she was in about 76, and she took care of her younger sister who was like 68. Her younger sister was mentally retarded, but she took care of her at their old home. Neither one of them ever got married. Of course, their parents were long dead. That must have been the family home. They lived there. She took care of her sister. Her sister was about my size, maybe shorter though, had my weight. And she probably had the mind of maybe an 8 or 9 year old. I mean, but she could function. But she had that kind of mind. You got to hear the story up front, because we really thought bad of her, the 68, the younger sister, until we met her. The 70, I say 76, I don't really know. But what had happened, and they apparently, they lived in this, one of those colonial kind of, Alamo Heights-y kind of houses, I suppose, where it's got a couple of stories, wooden frame, 2 stories, something like that. So they never had visitors, and what happened was the older sister, who was the responsible one, she failed. she fell in their foyer. There's a wooden floor, wasn't carpeted. It was, you know, and that's why I say it's those Alamo Heights-y kind of houses. So it's got the wooden floors. And she couldn't get up. She fell and couldn't get up. And she was thin. She was about 5'7", and she was probably 120 pounds in her healthy way, with, you know, health, in her good health, you see. So you're picturing her, and she's 76, and she fell, and she couldn't get up. And her younger sister, who's 68, remember, she's got the mind of a, maybe it's not even a 9-year-old, it's probably more like a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. Very young mind, you know, and mentality. And so the older sisters would say, well, just bring me my meal, bring me some food here. And I'll see, because her mind wasn't working right, the one that failed. She wasn't thinking clearly because nobody was around to take care of, nobody checked on them, you see. The only person that they would see maybe is who? Who do you think maybe they would see? No, because remember nobody came. They didn't have home health care. They were in OK Health.
The mailman?
Yes, the postman that would drop their mail off on their, you know, on their steps. You know, they have like little porchy steps and the mailbox right outside the door. Well, it got to be 3 or 4 days. Because see, the younger sister never checked the mail. It was the older sister. So that mail started running over. But see, the mailman knew that these 2 sisters lived there alone and there's no family. He knew there was a problem. He knew something after a few days, and it was not getting checked. So I think it went on for about 3 days. And he decided to knock on the door. Because the younger sister never walked outside the house. See, she never left unless she was in the company with her older sister. So here, this lady that I think she at one time maybe weighed 120 pounds, you have to imagine she laid on that hard wooden floor for at least 3 days. She really didn't get any hydration because, or food, if you can think of, if you can imagine. You know, maybe she brought her a cookie or maybe a little cup of water and thought that was it. But see, she was in so much pain from where she fell. She probably didn't really take it, whatever it was that the sister could mentally bring to her. And so we admit this lady to the ICU, and I receive her. And first thing the ER nurse tells me to do, she says, you contact Central Supply, and you don't get one of these. They had these where you could plug in and you could put in these deodorizers. She says you get 3 of them for your room. And they come in these big old jelly round things, the deodorizer, where you drop it in the machine. And it's just a little small machine, about the size of this, you know. But they drop inside and you plug them in. So I had 3 of them in there. Because I didn't really, you know, when they describe something, it's you know, words, but a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So they bring up the lady. She's in a coma. She's unresponsive, basically. She's gone unresponsive. Because when postmaster, mailman found her, she was not awake. They call EMS and get her in. And they bring her up. She's unresponsive. She's on dopamine. Y'all haven't learned about dopamine, but it's a vasopressor to bring up blood pressure. Because she had no blood pressure. She was still breathing. She didn't have no blood pressure. So they had started her on dopamine. They'd given her fluids. They were just running the fluids. and we had her on dopamine to try to maintain the blood pressure, and we'd had her maxed out on that at 20 mics per kilogram per minute, which you guys will learn as you go. We had her at as far as we could go with that. And I would like to describe her. We did the weight. We did the weight when we get her. You know, the beds have built-in scales, right? And we already have it 0 balanced out with the sheets and whatever else we, you know. So first thing, weighing her weight was 66 pounds. 66 pounds. I mean, I made up the 120. I'm just imagining in her healthy state that where she gets rounded would be, but she was on the thinner side, is what I'm trying to say, at 5'6". But 66 pounds is what she weighed. And her back, see what happened was the way she fell, and she ended up in the position she laid on the wooden floor is on her back. And so when I'm doing my assessment, because I have to do it pretty quick because she's so unstable, I've got that dopamine at 20 mics, and I've got IVs. We got central lines in her because there's no her vascular system, her veins, I mean, they've all collapsed, right? We're just in bad shape. They had to put in central lines in the ER. She's not dead, so we treat, you see. You can't, you know. But her, when I turned her over, and it just smelled, it immediately smelled of death. That's what it was. It was the smell of decay. You have to imagine. And her whole back, I could see all the way up to her spinning ribs. I could see the bones. It was that bad. It was that bad. It was, I had never had a patient, and it was it was gone. It was gone, because she didn't have any adipose, because, you know, she was a lightweight to begin with. But to imagine to be laying on a wooden floor for 3 days, when you don't move a patient, they break down. She was on that hard, and so it makes you also think back to Hurricane Katrina. Don't you remember how they had all those injuries, those elderly that were laying on the Interstate 10? Y'all heard about those, the changes in their, it wasn't cardiac enzymes, it was the muscle, the enzyme tied to the muscle. But she, and see, we were just so angry. We said, well, that sister ought to be locked up. We all the nurses were upset. And then the lawyer, they had an attorney that handled their will or whatever. He actually brought the sister to say goodbye to her older sister. Of course, the younger sister would have to be placed, and probably was placed already in a nursing home to take care of, because she's that, you know, that mentality. And she came up with the or maybe it was a social worker, I don't know who it was. It made us rethink how we felt about her, because as she comes with her teddy bear.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's her mentality. To see her sister, and she never, see, she didn't understand she knew that was her sister, but she didn't understand that her sister's, 1 hour from death. You know, which she did. She died very shortly after. She didn't have that enough of that mentality to know. But you see, that's just one story, and that happens. That's just one story, and it happens across the United States. We have so many situations we don't even know about of who's taking care of who, or what situations individuals are in, what state. But that's probably the worst I've ever seen. We didn't, quite frankly, know what to do with the skin, with her back. It was so bad. But then again, she died shortly thereafter.
Could it have been treated as a burn clinic?
Oh, it was. We did dress it with we used Silvadene cans, and they sent us the big cans, and we frosted. But see, it was so too late to recover her, because she was she was in multi-organ failure. Everything had failed on her by that time. That's how fast a frail person can go down. If they are already, and see, she probably didn't take that good a care of herself, because why? She had her hands full taking care of her younger sister. We do not know what goes on in families. We don't, but see, this is just a little heads up. You're going to find situations that are going to, and you have to, and see, we were so angry with that sister, we thought she needed to be thrown away, the key, locked away and key thrown away, see. But see, when we saw her with that teddy bear, we knew, then we understood what happened. It was, we could understand how this kind of situation happened. So I do like to share my, I call my war stories, and I will tell you war stories, but they're things that I've experienced so that you guys will never forget. Always look out for your elderly neighbors. Keep a pulse on your elderly neighbors that are living alone. See, we don't do that, do we, enough? We really don't. We don't know when there's one that's fallen, and you know good and well there's no other family members that come by. What? See, we gotta be a little more pay it forward kind of thought process, not just in nursing, but in our neighborhoods or people we see that are definitely in need. Right? I'm big on service learning. I'm very big on it. So you have me and Dr. Smith will be having y'all do service learning and mental health too. Anyway, that's the story about the cubitus. We'll move on. Burns, you know, we talked about that was treated like a burn. See, we treated it. Okay. So I've already talked about the delegation issue. I just want to remind you, important, it becomes your responsibility. Always keep that call light within easy reach. You might have your patient that says, I can bathe myself, and you set up the water and their towels and the soap and everything, and they start bathing and they start having chest pain. But you have inadvertently moved the call light. See? But so that's something you remember. You always make sure that call light's within their hands' reach at all times. But make sure you train and teach your nursing assistant personnel, right? Delegation, very important. You have the different types of bath, the bed bath. That would be somebody that would be like that lady, the example I gave you. Now that lady is not going to, we're definitely not getting her out of bed. She's on 20 mics of dopamine. She cannot, she's unresponsive. You may find a patient in the nursing home that you go to that's on hospice and they have become unresponsive. They have minimal vital signs. That individual might be the one you would do a bed bath. You wouldn't be getting them up to a shower. You can see what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. Comfort needs, but you don't forget them. You don't say, well, they're going to be dead and I don't need to do the bath. Don't be thinking that way, right? Yeah. Don't go down that path. Believe me, there's nurses that go down that path. Complete bed bath. That would be total, well, that would be the one that would be the unresponsive. But the bed bath, you know, they might, you do a bed bath, they might say, you might offer, do you want to wash, would you like to wash your private areas? Oh, yes, thank you. And what do? You hold up the bath blanket away from you so allow them that dignity. See what I'm saying? That's the right way to do it. Towel bath. Now, towel bath is an interesting thing, and I used to really think, you know, this has been added really since when I was in LVN school, because we all thought we got to just do the nice mitt. Mm-hmm. And I used to see where, I had done this for my patients that were really sick in the ICU, but